Hi,
Hi.
welcome to McKissick Museum's Ask A Curator program. This is the HSN project version of our Ask a Curator um, program series. So I'm Christian Cicimurri, the Curator of Collections at McKissick, and my colleague Linda Smith is with me. She serves as the program manager, project manager for the HSN project. So we're referring to this project by a group of letters here. It's called HSN, and that stands for the Historic Southern Naturalists Project. This is a grant-funded project in which we're working to digitize collections from McKissick Museum, as well as those from the A.C. Moore Herbarium at the University of South Carolina, collections in South Caroliniana Library's collection, and also the Charleston Museum. And we're combining all these digital images of objects, archives, botanical specimens, really everything we can find, and putting them all together in one centralized website that researchers can then use sort of as a one-stop shopping for historical research. This project started out as an internally funded grant project in 2016, and it ran for 2 years. And now we are about 2 years into a 3-year grant-funded continuation of that project. And that project is funded by the IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services. That is a federal program. So we want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with the project. Like I said, it's been going for about 4 years, and we've got another year ahead of us. As the person that kind of came up with the idea, I now serve to kind of manage what's going on and do a lot of administrative things, as well as the scientific specialist, we'll say, not expert, but specialist for identifying the natural history specimens. So we're really focusing on specimens that were collected by historic naturalists. And we started the project with Thomas Cooper, who was the University of South Carolina's second president. And then we moved to a gentleman named Lewis Reeves Gibbs, who was Cooper's assistant for a while, and then moved on to the College of Charleston, and he became an esteemed professor there. And finally, Andrew Charles Moore, who was a botanist and founded our herbarium at the University of South Carolina. So we are now in the second part of the project. We're adding more naturalists, adding more objects from other institutions like the Charleston Museum, and really building up the website to be a little more cohesive, not just focused on 3 naturalists. So I've got some questions. Because Linda's the project manager, she really knows so much about this project, and I want to give her a chance to shine here. So, Linda, do you want to go through the basic process of who's responsible for what and describe the team we've got working for?
Well, who's responsible for what here at the museum? We actually have a team of students and former students who take care of digitizing and photographing, scanning, describing. There are so many steps along the way, but I guess as far as institutional wise, each individual institution is digitizing their collections and then sending it over to digital collections at the university for them to then enter that into the content DM management software.
So, I wanted to ask, with the whole premise of this project, why is it important to science, to research? Why are we doing this?
Well, it's important for the historical value of the collection, but it's also important scientifically for researchers now to be able to have a baseline of what was actually found in the area during that time. And so then they can go back and research, well, if it's extinct, what made it become extinct? Or if it's changed and evolved, what do we think were the environmental causes for that?
Right. We've actually, the early stages of the project, how it started was as I was cataloging lots of mineral specimens, I was really hoping to find a diary or a field notebook from Thomas Cooper. We've got his mineral specimens, and many of the mineral specimens have a little label that Thomas Cooper wrote with them. And while those are very interesting, they're pretty brief. They really just say graphite from PA, Pennsylvania. And that's a big place. So I'm really hoping to find a little bit more information about where in Pennsylvania he may have found these specimens. And while we never found more than maybe a handful of associated archives or letters from Thomas Cooper, we found so many more interesting little tidbits in those letters. I have a whole new appreciation and perspective on Thomas Cooper now. So we're talking a lot about digitizing, and I think that can be kind of a word that's hard to approach. Linda, can you kind of discuss a little bit about the digitizing process? What does that mean? People might think it's just taking pictures. Um, but what is digitizing, and do you have to know a lot about science to do this?
Digitizing really can be done to any object, which we've already done objects like the inkwell or Thomas Cooper's watch fob that he got from Thomas Jefferson. So you don't have to have a lot of science to digitize. And digitization is really going a step further than photography by capturing the metadata associated with the image when you took it, what equipment you used, but then also we capture metadata for the objects themselves, any labels that were associated and people that were named in the labels. So we try to get as much information as we can, and we put it in a spreadsheet, which we then take all of that metadata and again send it to our best friends over at Digital Collections.
Right. At McKissick, we really just focus on taking excellent photographs from many different angles at very high resolution. And then really a lot of this is just data management, making sure we've captured everything we can about that particular object, whether it's a piece on paper, it's a mineral specimen, we describe it, who took the photographs, we transcribe the labels. It's really it can be tedious, but it's fun kind of when at the end of the year and you look at how much have we done this year, and something like 3,500 images of 500 specimens. It's really surprising sometimes. So there's a question that was submitted to us about, has COVID-19 affected the project? And I would say, of course, yes. COVID-19 is affecting everyone on the planet right now. But how has COVID-19 affected the project? You want to tackle that one, Linda?
Well, I think one example of that is us right now. We're not in the same building. We're not in the same town. But we had to work really hard, and I think we did a pretty good job of keeping the wheels on the project, keeping moving forward, keeping all of our student employees with a paycheck, which was one of our major goals, was just to keep the project moving, keep them employed. But we had to think a little bit outside of the box and come up with ways for them to connect to the different information and drives and software that they needed at the museum, be able to do that remotely and still be smart with our money. I guess, you know, we wanted to still have the project moving, but also be responsible with the funds as well.
Just like so many organizations, we've begun working remotely a lot, and there was a time where early on in the process, we take photographs in a light box. So it's a I don't know, think of a small dresser or a giant microwave. It's so we actually brought the light box to my home, and students came here and continued photographing here in this space right here. But yeah, we're still being affected by COVID-19, and you're finding new ways to get done collaborative work. I think we're all becoming more tech savvy than we ever imagined. So let's see. Linda, do you have any favorite tools for getting this project done?
My favorite is the light box. I really I enjoy that we're able to take spectacular photos and get some really great detail images so that our researchers will be able to actually probably get more out of the photographs than they would seeing and handling the actual image itself, the actual object itself, I should say.
Yeah, my goal when we started this project was for people all over the world to be able to zoom in on a picture of the object so that they would be seeing something in better detail than if they had it in their hand without magnification. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of our photograph. So, what does a normal day look like in the world of a digitization project? Normal day look like?
Well, normal has changed a lot. So normal in the museum and normal now are two different things. But I think for me, for my work, I basically try to keep the wheels on the bus while you're driving. I want to keep everybody with a project, make sure they have everything that they need to complete the project, and keep taking, at this point, baby steps forward, just continuing to move forward with each collection and cataloging, digitizing, photographing, all the different steps that go into the process.
Excellent. And I think that Amanda has shared a link to the website for the project so that anyone listening can click on and see some of the images that we're creating. All right, couple more. So, what's your favorite part of the process, Linda?
My favorite part, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What's your favorite part of the whole process?
Research. My degree is in anthropology and minor in history, so pretty much research on any project is my favorite part. I think within the scope of the grant, my favorite part has been reading the correspondence, the really primary source letters between the different naturalists and historical figures.
So I know that we haven't covered in great detail all of the steps of this digitization process. And we started out digitizing minerals and then objects like paintings and, you know, three-dimensional objects, not computer mice, but while another team digitizes archives like correspondence and manuscripts, things like that. So in doing that, we've since moved on from minerals to a large shell collection. Now we're moving back to minerals from a different naturalist, and soon we'll be digitizing an insect collection, a collection of moths and butterflies. And what I found is that there are some main steps. Make sure that the object is cataloged, take a photograph, document the metadata, send it on to digital collections so that they enter it into the website. However, with every collection, and I'm sure Linda's smiling, I could tell she knows exactly what I'm going to say. With every collection, there have been some unique challenges. And so the process has changed every time we move to a different collection. Sometimes the collections have been cataloged and we just need to maybe check the database records and make sure that everything is up to snuff. Other times the collections are not even in our computer database, so we need to put them in, and that's a big step. That makes the process take a lot longer. So my favorite part of the process is I usually am asked to confirm the identification of a mineral or a shell. A lot of the minerals I've already identified, and so I'm asked to create what's called a shooting list, which means I take the mineral and I decide how I want it oriented in the picture, and then I want another picture of it this way, and then I want another picture of the bottom, and trying to kind of describe, like, okay, this bright orange sparkly thing, that's the mineral, because I'm not ever working with geologists or mineralogists. I actually find that kind of fun. All right, let's see. Do you have any more questions? Linda, if you were going to create an exhibit out of any of the specimens that we've come across so far, what would that specimen be? What's your favorite?
I think we had, you and I had actually talked about doing an interactive, some sort of virtual exhibit regarding the shells and how the different environmental impacts have actually taken place over the years and changed what species are available, or are extinct, if they've evolved, that type of thing. I think that would be a really neat exhibit, just to kind of tie in the environmental impacts on the different species of clams and snails.
Right. Since the collection is historic, it's a collection of snails and clams that were found mostly in South Carolina or the U.S., Florida areas, although some were traded. So we do have some shells from Australia or Africa. But these shells were all collected in the mid 1800s. And so I thought it would be very interesting to kind of compare and contrast. Are those species still living in the same area? It's also possible to test the chemical makeup of this shell, of this historic shell, with a modern shell, and are the chemicals that were available in the seawater 200 years ago, are they still, those chemicals still available? And that might tell us, give us some clues to global climate change. So there's a lot of interesting research that can be done with this. Let's see. Oh, have we had any big surprises during this project? You want to talk about
that? I think the biggest one that comes to mind so far, let me just preface, so far, is the Mosique shell collection, as it was referred to. We were kind of given glimpses into the fact that it may not be the Mazzique shell collection early on in Aspire. And so when we hired Heather, one of our graduate students from the Library of Sciences, she went over to South Caroliniana, and did some research for a few weeks and came up with sort of the documentation that we were lacking in proving that it is actually Lewis Reeves Gibbs collection. And we purchased it as a college from his daughters after his death. And so that was probably the biggest surprise that we had a little inkling was coming.
Right. For probably 100 years, the collection has been referred to as the William Mazzique collection. He was a nationally recognized expert in shells, even though he was an amateur. And he served as the curator of malacology of shells at the Charleston Museum for many years. And he apparently, we were so sure, not we, but the university at some point was so sure that this collection had been his collection that it was actually cataloged with the letter M in front of all of the numbers on the shells, like M153, and because it was the Mosique collection, of course. And we found some documentation in the first stages of the HSN project that suggested maybe it wasn't, and they were some letters from Mosique to Andrew Charles Moore, and it was really just a coincidence that Moore happened to be included in the project. Otherwise, we wouldn't have ever found these letters. What other secrets are out there that we haven't found yet? But in the letters, Mosique was saying things like they were dated about 1906, and he was saying, well, as I'm going through Dr. Gibbs' shells, I'm noting this that was lacking from Gibbs's labels. And that kind of made us think, well, if they're Mosique shells, why is he saying that? Why is he saying it like that? And it turns out that the collection was purchased from Gibbs's family in, was it 1896? He died in 94, but it was a year or so after Gibbs died. Then, about 10 years later, Mosique was asked to inventory Gibbs's collection. And it is an important collection, but when he sent the collection back to USC at the time, it suddenly became known as his instead of Gibbs's. So we've corrected all of that, and it's now the Gibbs collection of shells. And the Charleston Museum has Mosique's collection of somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 shells. That was another big clue. When I talked to my colleagues in Charleston, I thought, why would Mosique give us 500 and give them 30,000? He didn't. All right, let's see. I've got a couple of just kind of non-HSN related questions. You ready for those, Linda? Yes. So do you have a favorite museum, Linda?
My favorite museum was probably the Vatican museums. I really enjoyed going there and given that opportunity. I'd love to spend much more time there, especially now that there's not a lot of people. Those would probably be my favorite.
Excellent. I've also been to the Vatican museums, and they are amazing. Though I would say my favorite museum is in Dublin, and it's the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology for the country of Ireland, the National Museum there. And I was blown away by all of the amazing natural history specimens, as well as artifacts from back to the Bronze Age. It was amazing. They even have bog people preserved there. Yeah. All right. So when you visit other museums, do you critique them? That's a great question.
That's an awful question.
How could I find myself at other museums kind of trying to look at how they mounted their labels, or how they got that violin to stand just right, looking like it's perfectly balanced on the end of it. And in doing that, I often find like, oh, they have a typo. That makes me feel a little better about when we sometimes have a typo. Things happen, and things slip through the cracks, I'm sure. But even at some of the very best museums, I've seen cobwebs inside the cases and typos on their labels. So I'm trying to say that I'm not feeling very critical of them, but this is sometimes a hard job. You've got to do a little bit of everything. How about you, Linda?
I think when I'm not really critiquing, but like you trying to see how they did things, and then it also makes me feel better when I'm like, oh yeah, we do it that way, so yeah, and we're doing it. We're either really both doing it wrong or we're both doing it right.
Right, right. Hmm. Well, I think we're almost at the end of our questions. We've got a couple more. What are the top 3 tips for people that might want to work in a museum? I'm not sure I have 3. I would say get involved with a museum. Try and at least get a volunteer or an internship position, and demonstrate to the people in that museum that you want to work there and that you have value. And if you're willing to do that temporarily for free as a volunteer, most museums will work hard to get you on in a paid position if that's what you want. So that's what I did. I worked for the National Park Service in an intern kind of fashion where I was paid something like $20 a week, basically for free. That then turned into paid positions there, and then a career in paleontology. But let's see. What's one thing we wish people knew about McKissick? That's a tricky one. There are a lot of things that I wish people knew about McKissick's, but the biggest thing is that I wish people knew that visiting McKissick is not as difficult as it may seem. That yes, parking can be problematic, but there are plenty of metered spaces near McKissick. We really have such a varied collection. You can come to McKissick and see everything from mineral specimens to botanical specimens to quilts to sweetgrass baskets to pottery to artwork. I mean, such a variety. And we've recently, we're in the stages of completing a conservation assessment for preservation project in which I had to count how many objects are in our collection. How many objects are in our collection? Linda, do you have do you know? Do you have a guess?
No, I have no guess.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was personally shocked when I saw the number, including, well, just McKissick's collection is about 75,000 objects. And McKissick also is home to the Folk Life Resource Center, which is an archive of audio, visual, and manuscripts that relate to folk life in South Carolina. Including all of that, we've got 175,000 individual objects to care for, to preserve, and to document. It's a lot. I had no idea. So, do we have any other questions from Facebook? Maybe Amanda can send us a message. Any other questions coming in from Facebook? Linda, where do you hope the HSN project will go next?
I'm sorry. Where do I what?
Where do you hope the HSN project will go next?
Oh goodness.
Well, first the insects, but
yeah, we that's a big one. So I think that probably takes up most of my thought processes right now. So beyond that, I don't really have a clue. I'm just I think I've been anticipating that from the very beginning, the collection. So once we get through that, then I might be able to answer that.
No worries. Well, those are all the questions that we have, and I just want to thank you, Linda, for having this online conversation with me. I'm looking forward to the time where we're working in the same space again. It's easier to get things done when we're together sometimes. But any closing comments?
I don't think so.
No, it's time for us to get back to work on the HSM project.
Yes.
I want to thank everyone, and please visit the website that Amanda has posted in the chat. We will be revamping one of the websites so that it's a little more functional, and I want to thank you all for joining us as we talk about the Historic Southern Naturalist Project.